Out of the well, basically 3 projects we have been doing in the last year and a half, I would say Collegali it's definitely the one, well, including the highest levels of complexity. So that's why I was very interested on showing it to you. Collegali, it's well, it couldn't be more beautiful. It's in the middle of Tuscany. It's I would definitely not stop in all the slides, but I mean, from the pictures you will able to see it's an astonishing place with a central borgo and a set of isolated villas. It's a 240 hectares place with a huge story. It's 900 years of story. So now it belongs to, well, it used to belong to the Strozzi family. So between the Strozzi and the Medicis, I mean, Florence was created between Renaissance and 17th century. So yeah, it couldn't have it, at the same time more layers in terms of culture and history and family stories. It's basically created out of that. So it's geographically it's in between. It's going to be also a more strategic location. It's in the triangle between Florence, Livorno, or Pisa and Siena. So it's right in the middle, but it's at the right distance on the main road. So the location it's unique also. So we're talking about 240 hectares. The biggest one you see on the left is 210 hectares, and then it's got an isolated 30 additional hectares by the main road. So it's got also those 2 really strategic locations. The landscape, yeah, it is very powerful. It's not exactly the typical Tuscany, very clean, vibrant green and and producing land, but it's very primitive. It's basically the bosco. It's basically the forest, the Italian forest. It's full of cliffs, so it's incredibly beautiful in terms of landscape, no doubt. And it's got unspoiled views. That's something amazing in Collegali. I mean, if you're there, it's just everywhere, 360 degrees, you see just forest. So that's very powerful. So you have some images of the Borgo, the main villa, the Strozzi villa that was built in the 18th century. It's built on top of the 12th century old ruins, and it's got it's full of very impressive spaces. Not only on the main noble villa, but also on the underground. You have these beautiful wine and olive oil production spaces. So yeah, it is incredibly beautiful. So what is really interesting of Collegali is the Borgo. It was not only a very a rich family living there, but they were based on production. So it used to have 400 people working on this place on many different handcraft and activities and tasks. So from wood making to metal to fabrics to bread. So, but also glass. So all the region in Tuscany, which is very famous for having this amazing multi-layer handcraft work. Well, Collegali used to be a hub for all of them. So yeah, that's also a really nice additional element. So this is on the other 30 hectare small place. It used to be a tobacco factory. The family used to be very famous for producing tobacco. The last family on the 19th, 20th century. And then it's surrounded by these villas. The villas were, well, they can be turned into villas. They were never villas. They were actually places for the people producing the land. So they had a really nice agreement with the family, 50-50, a mezza system. So that will allow the families to live out of their production and still help the family to control the territory. So, well, we did, there's a lot of work behind it, a really nice work of content creation team, also on circular economy business model. So yeah, it has been fantastic to work with these 2 girls, Alexia and Felice. So, well, I'm not going to stop here, but it's full of those months of lots of thoughts and lots of really nice meetings and gatherings. Very productive, very fun. This is a very important one. The main values of the project. Well, you know about all these, but yeah, it is, and we always want to make sure this is perfectly clear explained, because it's the base basically of everything we're doing now. So here the contribution of Naomi Tellier, which was fantastic. She made lots of these thoughts are coming from those contributions. So at the end, we had the why, the very basic why, you know, because placemaking was a very big thing. It has been in all the work we have been doing in the last 3 years, but this is, I mean, something we put lots of time on it. And then the how, you know, it's diversity. In this case, it's diversity as also one of the main elements on the system, on the design system. And finally, the offered product, you know, at the end, it's a systemic and organic evolution of the product of those spaces, you know, created with this new attitude, I would say. So in this one, I will stop a bit more because it's the essence of Collegali. So we have two main overarching concepts. So it's regenerating nature and sharing knowledge as the main two master plans. Okay, so on top of the urban architecture master plan, we have regenerating nature and sharing knowledge as very, very specific and thorough master plans done by absolute experts. So regenerating nature is done by Regenerative Systems Design Studio, as Mauricio Uman, doing a great job in Portugal, but now doing projects all over the world. And then sharing knowledge, it's done by Learning for Wellbeing. It's an association based in in the Netherlands that it's based on holistic education and system with a fantastic systemic approach. So that has been a great set of collaborations. The stakeholders are absolutely fantastic, and they are always new people interested. So I won't stop. Regenerating nature. Each one of them has its own offering. Obviously, living. We have lots of we have a huge hospitality offer, but it's definitely not the essence of the project. With its own offerings here. And well, we have a huge set. I will be very happy to share more details. Creating it's absolutely essential. The idea is to bring back to Collegali what the handcraft of those 400 people working there in the 18th century, make them come back with the 2.0 version, you know, of this creative attitude and ateliers. We have Mexican industrial designer and artist curating the art residencies. So that's also a very interesting part of it. With its offerings, knowledge sharing, as I said, is one of the main ones. Okay, this is also very important for us. I'm an architect and urbanist, so the idea of putting together the spaces, how do you activate in this Borgo? This is the main Borgo. It's get to 18,000 square meters of open indoor-outdoor spaces working together. So when do you activate each building? How do they work together with the outside? Which are the main views? So all these relationships have been also very important. So for whom? Well, we know the gang interested in this kind of projects. That's not something new. What do they come for? No. So all that has been really lots of time and discussions put on these. The main target. Okay, so local, regional, international has been also a very important thing. Seasonality, you know, how are we breaking seasonality with how do we mix artistic parts with festivals, but also with retreats. So also that has been very important. I had a fantastic chat with Jessica on this, and it was very useful. Thanks, Jess, for that. So that's it. So that's basically the presentation. But I also wanted to share, if you allow me for that, very fast. I wanted to. Do I still have 2 minutes, Anton?
Go for it.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Just let me just share the screen again. I will share this one. Sorry. Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, but hope.
Now?
Nope, not yet.
On.
Yes, yeah. Now we can.
Now, can you see it?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a very, very important element of the project. Impact measurement has been also, has always a personal obsession from my side. So what we did here is trying to deal with all this complexity and yeah, dealing these levels of complexity. We found a very interesting, always in the olive oil seed shape. No, we managed to put together the 6 layers of the project in order to know how we evolve a long time. So we have economical, so it's basically it's business, people, and nature in the first set. But then we also have the build, the building, the elements, landscape, everything which you feel, the physical part of it. We have the knowledge sharing programs and definitely the region and the territory. So what we have identified now is that Collegali has very, very poor relationships because, yeah, I mean, it has been abandoned for a while. So all the local and regional connections have been lost. But we identified the huge potential on basically in 5 years' time, how can we make this system definitely be better and way more connected. So so that's 2028. We think that in 2035, we should be able to put together and have a really measurable system, which is way more vibrant and alive. So what we did here is that we identified, when we talk about business units, so we identified all the business units related to Collegali. So we have hospitality, land, knowledge sharing. Each one of them have been actually analyzed and identifying potential, basically. So we have the people, and then this is when we start locating with Kumu. I don't know, maybe you all know about Kumu, but it's a fantastic tool to deal with complexity. So Kumu allows us to identify exactly all these connections. So you just click on each one of these lines, and it will tell you how big, when, who. So that's a really, really useful tool. So then we did the same thing with the build. So we have all the buildings in the project. Here on the next level, we have all the educational layers. So all the educational programs, knowledge sharing programs, very specific for different ages, for different specialities. But it's so that all these stakeholders are really fitting into the system in a very rich way. And then we have the territory itself. So we have, again, region, people. So we have the same one. So build, knowledge sharing, people, nature, and business, but for the territory. So for the whole region that we have identified. And the idea is to put together and make all these connections work at some point. So we are in a very, very first beginning stages of the project, but this is the way we are proceeding. Sorry, maybe I took too much time. Sorry for that.
Amazing, Eric. Thank you. It's beautiful. But we'll pass on to Tom, and we'll save all the questions and discussion until the end, so that we
Brilliant.
can
Thank you.
harvest. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Anton. That's a really interesting presentation. So from eco villages to using regenerative design in the city, that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit in the next presentation. So I'll just share screen and get going. So my name is Tom Manwell. I'm the director of Well Studio Architecture and Co-Living, and we're a studio based in London, in Chelsea. We're a little family, and we design a lot of spaces for co-living, for well-being and community. And please do visit our website, find out more about us. This is our little studio. Do come and visit us if you're in London. And what I want to talk about today is first just some of our kind of research and ethos based principles that we use to design our buildings. So the first one, it's from the Conscious Co-Living consultancy. It's called the Conscious Co-Living Manifesto. And actually, I was a co-founder of Conscious Co-Living, so I also helped to develop this. It's a really good framework for how we can think about the design of both eco-villages and also communities of all kinds. An idea of a new paradigm of living where people are connected with themselves, each other, and with nature. And this being a kind of way to maybe meet some of the collective action problems in our societies. Obviously, the climate crisis, an epidemic of loneliness in our cities, and a feeling of disconnection from each other in terms of community in our cities, and also an epidemic of mental health issues and physical health issues, all about our own physical and mental well-being. And all of these aspects can come together in a new way of living, where the way that we live actually helps us to connect with each other again and to feel more well in ourselves and to live more sustainably on the planet. So that's why we have the well-being, sustainability, and the community aspects of this manifesto. And then the other aspect of building design that we like to bring into our projects is the well building standard. The well building standard has been around for quite a while now, but it's a globally recognized standard for how you can incorporate well-being into both the design and the operation of buildings. And it has, in this version 1 aspect, 7 different features: air, water, nourishment, light, fitness, comfort, and mind. And the idea is that there's a lot of research behind each of these features and how they can best be incorporated into the design and the operation of buildings. The third aspect that we bring in is something we've put together ourselves from all of our experience of designing buildings, living in buildings, thinking about well-being and how best to design spaces to support mental and physical well-being. And so this 10 elements of well-being co-living design build on the well-building standard, but take it a little bit further and more holistic in terms of its approach. So it looks at the 5 senses of the body, how we see, how we feel, how we touch, how we smell. Those aspects all coming together with maximizing natural light in buildings, looking at natural ventilation and good air quality, looking at the acoustics of a building and how it can support conversation, as well as having good acoustic separation between shared spaces and private spaces, looking at warmth and how you create buildings that are cozy to be in, but also sustainable to operate. Touch and how you can have materials in buildings that are pleasing to the touch. Community, how you bring people together in buildings, how they interact. Connection to nature and how you can connect to nature in different ways with views out of buildings into gardens and landscapes, up to the sky through roof lights, but also bringing indoor planting into the building and biophilic design. Sustainability being a very broad aspect to all of the design elements that we put into our buildings. Aesthetics and beauty, and trying to create spaces that are pleasing visually and feel calming to be in and relaxing to be in. And then movement, physical exercise, and encouraging people to have physical exercise when they're moving around the building and creating spaces where they can also exercise and do yoga or physical exercise workouts. And then we like to think about all the people that are going to live in the building and actually how are they in terms of whether they're introverts or extroverts, and what kind of lifestyles do they have? How can they best be given the facilities that they need in the building, and also the types of spaces that we create would actually work for them. And also thinking about people with disabilities as well is important. And then we talk about the glue of the building. What's the shared activities that people will have in the building that will bring them together and form community? And this will be different building by building, but some of them could be things like gardening together, or eating together is obviously a massive one in co-living. Well-being activities like yoga classes or other types of activities where people can come together for their exercise and well-being. And also another aspect being if people in the building have shared endeavors, like they're all working on startups together, or they might all be interested in meditation or mindfulness, creating spaces in the building that allow those people to interact and get to know each other. And then in terms of the actual built scale of the building, we like to imagine there are 4 different scales in a co-living building which can relate to the design aspect, and are a good conceptual way to think about how these small parts of the building fit together to create the larger building as a whole. So individual private elements such as bedrooms or studios, how these bedrooms and studios are then clustered around shared kitchens, living and dining spaces or other spaces that are shared by a smaller number of people, and then how these clusters are actually stacked or distributed through the building so that they come together, and then there are other facilities in the building that are used by everyone together in the building, and then how this building fits within its context, within its local area, its neighborhood, and how the facilities that the building has, the amenities that the building has, actually relate to other existing amenities in the neighborhood, and therefore that there's joined up thinking there in terms of what the amenities the building has and how they can actually benefit the wider locality. So really thinking about how this is integrated into the neighborhood. And then the step further that we've gone at Well Studio is we've put all this together into a matrix of building design. So we've looked at all these different design elements that can be put into buildings, such things like community kitchens or community corridors or curved walls or a shared or so clean energy generation or shared laundries. And in a bit of the same way that Christopher Alexander does in his book Pattern Language, we've kind of looked at how all these different elements of the building can then be kind of put together and arranged in different ways, rather like cooking with different ingredients based on each specific project and the requirements of that project. So using this matrix is quite a good framework for us to then be able to specify a certain kind of configuration of co-living for a certain area, a certain type of person, a certain locality, etc., and thinking all the time about sustainability, well-being, and community as these 3 pillars of the design. A few examples now of some projects we've worked on, just to kind of give some life to flesh to these ideas. The first one is Urban Co-Living Concept. This is a concept building we designed for a co-living company called Ours Community in London. We looked at the idea of modular construction, and actually by how you can use cross-laminated timber, sustainable timber construction to design individual studio bedroom modules and community space modules for a building, and that they can be stacked together to form the building itself. And how this could be laid out essentially floor by floor in the building to create these clusters, so that you have repetition, but also individual rooms and balconies incorporated with indoor biophilic planting in the corridors to activate the corridors and make them more interesting and nice spaces to be in, with shared spaces that can be used by each cluster and have different activities and balconies, both private and shared balconies looking out over the city. And then kind of bringing it into 3D renders. This is the kind of end result that we were looking at here, and how we can create these spaces that really work for the community, the people that are living in the building, balcony areas. The next project is another idea which came to us from a client in India, Happy Hotel, where they wanted to create a co-living hotel. So this was really interesting as a concept. How can you bring community and clusters of co-living into hotels, and also do the climate. So this is the kind of end building that we designed with a lot of different biophilic terraces, and I'll go into how this was worked through as a set of ideas. So we had a site in Chennai in India, which is in the south of India, very, very hot climate near the sea, and quite a large site. And we were just tasked with the idea of creating a concept building for this site. And we were inspired by the chawls of India. There were these existing buildings, tenement buildings in India, where a lot of basically quite poor people live, but they live in very kind of quite dense urban kind of blocks with very narrow courtyards that bring light down into the ground level of the buildings, but actually provide a lot of shading naturally for all of the building, the dwellings that are in that building. And so with these narrow courtyard ideas, we applied to our site to try and create a building that actually wouldn't use as much energy as or would use as little energy as possible in terms of its ventilation, in terms of its cooling, and create these fingers, these kind of fingers which are arranged around green kind of urban courtyards, and then set them back according to the requirements of that area on the site, and then terraced them all so that they all had essentially maximized natural light and had views over the city out to the sea, and we'll be able to see the sea from near the higher parts of this building. And we kind of put all this together into these clusters of co-living with different numbers of bedrooms or studio rooms, with biophilic planted corridors internally, planted balconies externally, which would also provide shading for the facade of the building, and then this kind of shared community space with some nooks in it so that you could have more intimate conversations here, as well as kind of shared living, kitchen and dining spaces within this shared space at the end of each cluster. And then that would open out onto a balcony, again with a lot of planting that would provide natural cooling to the balcony, so it'd be quite shaded and would allow people to actually relax and sit out here without all of this potentially not needing artificial cooling or air conditioning as much as a normal building would need. And then here are some renders of how it might look with all these biophilic terraces and a lot of connection to nature. The balconies where people can have yoga classes and practice yoga, and then sit outside and have dining, and also have these really nice views over the city and this real close connection to nature, whilst also benefiting from the shade and the natural ventilation of that. So the final project to show you today is just going a little bit into London, and another idea that we had for London, which is to do with practicing mindfulness. So I thought this might be of interest to the Rebuild viewers today. This is the Mindfulness Centre concept in London, and the idea was I'm also I practice mindfulness. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 10 years, and we have it's a great practice, and it really has this feeling of well-being that comes from being in the present moment and finding calmness and relaxation and joy from being in the present moment. But it's quite antithetical to the way the city operates, i.e. the city is very busy and has a lot of noise and traffic and stress and vibration and people, pollution all around it. So if you want to practice mindfulness and create a center for that, first you kind of need to create a sanctuary within the city. And the idea was that you would kind of insert this courtyard, circular courtyard building into the middle of the city, and by creating using walls to create acoustic barriers and visual barriers, you would create this kind of tranquility of peace within the city where people can go and practice mindfulness. And then you would, it also brought in the concept of the circle is the Zen Buddhist concept of the kind of infinite circle together as a kind of geometrical device. And then the idea of flowers, and there's a lot in a mindfulness practice about no mud, no lotus, and the idea of the lotus flower being kind of like symbol of enlightenment. So the lotus concept, and then the idea of this place where people can practice mindfulness and then go back out into the city and practice compassionate activism and engage Buddhism back into the surrounding city. So this is how it might look. This circular courtyard in the center of the building with balconies and sort of circulation routes around the interior of this circle, a colonnaded ground floor circulation route, and then a series of balconies above with dormitory rooms and bedrooms coming off this. And this, because this interior of the circle would be very quiet, acoustically separated from the city, people could actually meditate in here. And then below the kind of ground level, underneath that internal circular courtyard, a hall for meditation and mindfulness practices, and then around on the ground floor level, kind of other spaces which would provide co-working and mindful offices and a community cafe and other kind of amenities which would kind of interface with the rest of the city. And then on the roof, a circular grassed kind of mindful garden where people can walk and practice mindful walking and have views over the city while they're doing that. And then also this kind of, by combining the need for circulation with and other kind of core features with a tower that would provide views over the city. So beautiful concept for how people can practice mindfulness in a busy city. And maybe these could be, you know, if there was one of these in each city around the world, it would be quite a beautiful network of centers. So that's the end of the little presentation I've got for you today. Yeah, I'd love to hear your feedback and look forward to the discussion later about all of these ideas. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Tom. A little bit over time, but really beautiful to see. Right, let's jump straight into Nicole, and let's try and keep it within the 5 to 10 minutes as well. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Anton. I just want to see a show of hands, like how many here are building a community or want to build a community? If you just put your hands up, if you want to live in community, if you want to build. Okay, I see village builders. I see community builders. This is amazing. I'm Nicole. I am a designer and certified eco-village researcher and designer. I'm a co-founder of the collective Regen Tribe. And one of the things that we do is deeply research all of the best practices. And what I'm going to share with you today is actually the worst practices that we've seen, because I assume that many of you here are present today to learn how to avoid those mistakes and build a successful village. So as a collective, we've consulted with several projects. We're active consultants for about 5 projects and have 2 mainland projects in which we are developing here in Mexico. One is a 400-hectare project called Cuyabe, which I will be presenting about on Sunday. And another one is Ixchel, which is actually an eco-village that we are moving into and being offered leadership of. And I want to share with you some of the hacks, basically, that has brought us to this point and accelerated our village building process. And then, but first I'm going to go over some of the common mistakes that we've seen with village builders and vision holders that are basically stagnating, and why their projects are stalling, and why they're not getting the traction that they want. So I'm going to share with you 5 major lessons that we've compiled. And then I can share with you a link later about the actual article in which you can find that this is a summary. But the 5 major lessons are really, we see put down short-term housing first. We need to reevaluate the concept of mine in community development. You need to find the humans first. You need to plan for the best and plan for the worst. And then 5, you need to leverage modern tools. So let's dive into it and keep it brief. I just want to leave you with this resonance of what the most important things are in village building. So when you're building and designing a village, you often ask what comes first. And we've definitely seen beautifully constructed regenerative communities built by a single vision holder, but unfortunately they remain empty and no one's living there because they built for phase 20 instead of phase 2. So I can't tell you how many projects we've walked through that are gorgeous and full of all the central palapas and have all the sustainable infrastructure that you could dream of, and there are no residents, or some people have bought lots, but no one's developing. And these vision holders then keep investing their own money into amenities like a giant lagoon or a tantra temple or an additional event palapa in the hopes that this will wow people into wanting to live there. And what we've found and what we've seen in the most successful projects that we consult for, no matter what your budget is, like whether it's luxe or it's low key, we advise that you put down short-term housing first. This allows you to build what we call the pioneer community, because if you get people living on site as soon as possible, then you have succeeded in that phase of the pioneer community. And this is basically your group of early adopters. They are the first people on the dance floor when everyone else is too shy to make that leap. These are the people that will move in and dedicate themselves to making the community happen. They bring life, culture, and all the necessary vibes to make other people want to start dancing. And we typically advise this because we see people stall because they're looking for large investments, or, you know, they're kind of delaying their community life and community vision until it's all perfectly ready. And certainly in the time of climate crises, living in a resilient, self-sufficient village is better now than 10 years from now. We want to accelerate the opportunity for people to live a sustainable life and lessen our impact on Earth as quickly as possible. So this is one thing that we've seen that will accelerate that possibility for people and that lifestyle for people. So build one big community house with a shared kitchen and a co-working space, maybe put 5 smaller private units around it, and you have a community space. So that is our number one. We absolutely see that this is the key to getting people living and having a community. This is actually what's true for the community that we're moving into, Ixchel, here in Mexico. It's the only functioning eco-village in the region because it has just sample beautiful glamping cabanas built around a cenote, and there's actual community life. So this brings me to the second piece of advice. We certainly have a lot to decondition from in this village building movement. And one of those concepts that we have to deconstruct is the concept of mine. So another common obstacle that we as village builders have to decondition ourselves from, but may find challenging to do so, is our beliefs about ownership. So when you're building a regenerative village, the process naturally challenges you to examine why are you building a village by yourself? Why do you seek to acquire land if you haven't met the right people yet to partner with you on it? So this has also been part of our process. We've met and discussed many village builders, and we've seen too many people who decided they want to start a community and their first step is buying land. And this is admirable and arguably an excellent way of using the privilege of having enough capital to buy land, in that you can freely invite people to take part in the co-creation, right? But a common scenario that we've seen, which is much more common than people getting the land and then suddenly a bunch of people flocking to them, is that each of these people and these village builders now independently own large tracts of land, but they can no longer collaborate because they're already committed to their own land. And they could have made excellent partners, but you know, perhaps subconsciously they wanted to create a community where they possess default control. So we notice it requires trust and courage to surrender control and invite people into collaboration on these types of projects, but it provides so much more opportunity to develop your community faster and more holistically, because more perspectives give you just a richer tapestry and a more holistically designed community. So in spaces where people are innovating in regeneration, ownership is constantly being challenged and, you know, being replaced by stewardship. So if you want a community land project, develop it as a community and invite as many people as possible to be part of the process. So that brings me to the third point, and what we've practiced as a collective and what's allowed us to gain momentum in acquiring existing land projects is that you have to find the humans first. You simply can't build community alone. It's antithetical. You will find that you will burn out quicker. You will run into obstacles that you don't necessarily have the resources or skills to overcome. So we suggest you focus on finding the humans first and building from there. One of our friends jokes, like, get 20 of you on a boat and go for a long trip, and the 5 that last until the end, like, those are your people, go make community with them. So prioritizing finding people with the same ideals and visions will make it easier to collaborate and build a thriving community. So you can't ignore collaboration in this process. Using digital spaces like tribes or Revillager to connect with community builders is something that comes highly recommended. So we built a social networking and resource platform for people building regenerative communities and also seeking others who are building them and want to connect with the emerging ideas. So planning and creating through the community lens also helps the community to be ontologically designed for the people who will actually be using the spaces, which is another sub benefit of building with the actual future residents rather than for imaginary future residents. The fourth, in It Goes Without Saying, is clear agreements. We say plan for the worst because often there are certain situations that lead to the demise of projects, and it's quite sad, but it's very realistic. So some typical things that we advise are creating very clear memorandums of understanding, very clear agreements and bylaws, and exploring alignment very deeply before you jump into committing to build with other people. If you're a couple starting a project, have mature conversations about what will happen to you and the community in the event that you split up. If you're business partners, make sure you're doing deep dives to discover true alignment before taking any leaps of commitment. If you are friends, roles and responsibilities are a common conflict. So if you don't know who's responsible for what, this can often lead to resentment in people who feel like they take on more than others. So being very clear and also even outsourcing labor helps in the community creation where there isn't contention around who's doing what, who's more responsible, and that it's very clear. One of our co-founders, he actually lost $60,000 in investment because the project partner turned sketchy and didn't honor their verbal agreements. So there's a legal dispute, which is often, people have this fear of getting into exactly this type of situation. And I would, our advice is, as much as possible, explore everything in written agreement. Clear written agreement that also outline worst case scenarios, because they can end up saving you a lot in the end. And then finally, it also might seem obvious, but we recommend that you improve your process by leveraging digital tools. We notice that village builders tend to fall into two camps, one that espouses technology and one that seeks to escape it. And the choice typically stems from beliefs about whether or not technology can harmonize with nature or our nature. So I definitely don't believe that the cult of progress is the final authority. You don't have to adopt technology just for the sake of it, but you don't have to reject technology in order to get back to nature. We recommend modern tools that empower this movement, and we can use to our village building benefit. Again, there's Tribes as a platform for connecting to the regenerative neighborhood movement. We at Miro, we love for mapping design thought work and collaborating on ideas. Asana for creating project timelines. ChatGPT and generative image AIs will accelerate your creative process and concept art. So even if that's not your area of expertise, you can still have concept art that you can present to investors, whether human investors or financial investors. There's 3D village mapping. I'm going to share a link to an article with all of these linked resources, but you can check out Agartha's Village OS, which is so amazing. You can like go in and see the whole village mapped 3D before it's even been built. And that will also help you conceptualize a village and get people's buy-in, because when people can actually see it, they're more likely to be like, oh yeah, I see the vision of the village. I can imagine myself there. I want to live there, or I want to put money down and buy there. You can use Topia for creating online worlds. And then lastly, you'll hear more about this in other panels throughout Rebuild, but NFTs and tokenization for raising capital for your projects. So in summary, like we've put together this from our years of experience of, I have 5 years of experience researching, living in, traveling to, and studying quite actively functioning villages, the ones that are flourishing, the ones that are starting, and been able to see the shortcomings that keep people from moving forward, and also what works really well in the process. And with my co-founder, we've kind of combined our learnings and been able to explore this, and wanted to offer that because we truly see failure as such a ripe opportunity for learning. And yeah, I will share a resume of this insight, Eric, because I think the more we can dive into what hasn't worked, the more we can proliferate regenerative villages, which is ultimately my vision. I want to see as many regenerative villages built on Earth as possible. And I imagine the same is for all of you here today. So I'm very honored and grateful to be able to share this knowledge and insight. And I feel good. I feel good today. And so I want to pass it to you, Anton, to go on to the next person, and I'll share a link in the chat right now.
Amazing, thank you. Marcelo, could you jump in and dive into your presentation?
Sure,
Thanks,
thank you. For me, it's the morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm in Costa Rica. My name is Marcelo, and 12 years ago, I began building a village. 2010, actually 13 now. 13 years ago, I built a village called La Ecovia. And it was, I worked for many years building eco resorts and sustainable regenerative practice, permaculture, and so on. And I wanted to, I had a son, and I was desperate to join a village. I traveled all around the world, a year and a half visiting villages, and I couldn't find anywhere that I resonated. And I said, this is the place where I wanted to build. So after traveling that, we came back to Costa Rica with my wife, and we said, okay, I'm going to build it. And in less than a year, I put together a master plan. I found the land. And in less than a year, we were 47 families from 29 different countries that joined. this idea. And I built the infrastructure. Everybody got their lots, and we started living here. And it was a very successful village that has been running, and we've been living here. We created a school that got a lot of attraction around the world. It's called Casa Azula. And part of that, it was more families that wanted to join and wanted to be part of this. And as soon as we moved into La Ecovilla, my wife got diagnosed with breast cancer. So I was really focused on my family, and it was amazing to have the community and seeing the power of having a supportive community being around you in difficult times, for me, for my boys, for her. And unfortunately, she died in 2020. And at the same time, with all this craziness, it was the beginning of COVID, and I didn't even remember that 2 years ago, Zac Efron came with another guy into La Ecovilla and Casa Azula, and we showed them. And right on the middle of COVID, while everybody was in lockdown, it came in Netflix, this show called Down to Earth, and it showcased La Ecovilla and Casa Azula. And it was like we were receiving 5,000 emails a day in Casa Azula and La Ecovilla. It was impossible for us to answer all these messages from people from all over the world that were dreaming. And it was so nice, and saying, wow, this is so incredible, to so many people looking for change, looking for something different. And so where we had the school used to be a petting zoo. It's a 200 hectares, about 500 acres of land that used to be this petting zoo and cow farm. So we said, okay, how can we take, we only work with land that's been previously impacted by monoculture or agriculture. And in here we said, okay, how can we take all the things that we learned in these 10 years of the laboratory of La Ecovilla, and how can we bring this experience and making it that is accessible for everyone, and that we can expand in Costa Rica and around the world, and give the possibility to more people to join these villages, making it accessible in all terms, not only money-wise. Like, how can people feel comfortable of getting out of the comfort zone of the city, of where they were born, or anything, to join? Or even how can we work with villages? There are so many rural villages that they are like so easy to switch them into an eco-village, just by creating this, working in these invisible structures in that. So we said, okay, how can we do it and work in these rural areas to really regenerate the land, restore ecosystems, have people living together, and creating these life-changing communities. So this is a little bit about the values that you can find on the website. And really, like, we have this diverse group of people from all over the world that right now we started with Ecovilla San Mateo, this big, much larger project. And we have people from newborns to 99 years old that are joining the community. And this is really a diverse, not only on nationalities, it's backgrounds, and so many people that, you know, that they think so differently as well, and having all these challenges. And that's where it's your like opportunity for growth. When you have people that really do not think like you, it's very easy to do things with people, with like-minded people, where people that think really different. And how can you learn from each other and growth and transcend this, where you really can make a lasting change. And it's this thing versus, like, you know, going alone and making things faster versus community. You can get much farther, but much slower. So part of what we wanted to do is how we take this land that's been previously impacted, and we developed around 4 or 5% of the land and leave 95% for green areas, regeneration, wildlife corridors, and so on. And it's part of what we want to do, is really getting as much land as we can, that we can create these villages and have the people being the stewards, the park rangers of these reserves, and seeing how we work on restoring these ecosystems and how all the wildlife comes back and how we can protect this through a sustainable development, through regeneration and so on. So as I said, we have 200 hectares, 95% green spaces, and we created 6 villages because this is a much larger land than the original La Ecovia, that where I live. I know, like for experience, for studies and everything, that like the sweet number is between 40 to 60 families when you create a village. And in order to really have that intimacy, that connection, that growth and so on. So we've done an internal imaginary division, like the countries, you know, like when you have a country, there are no barriers, there are no fences or anything, but we created 6 villages that we offer people that they can purchase a lot. And after they purchase a lot, they build their dream house. And we create the whole container for all the magic to happen. And there we have the school, high school, kindergarten, right outside your back door, your backyard. Every single lot borders with, this is the common areas on La Ecovia. This is a community rancho where we have kitchen, we come together for meals. We have a shared lap pool for exercise, and it's a recreational pool as well. We have rancho for yoga, for movement. And this is our part of the amenities that we all share. We have a greenhouse where we grow, that's a yoga shala that we use it for dance meditation. We use the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, reduce, and recycle. And part of that is through compost. We have shared compost, and some people have their own compost, and there we reuse them in the gardens where we grow. All these are things that we grow on site: mangoes, a lot of fruit, vegetables, herbs, things that we have from our own gardens. And now we are on this thing, like from the original La Ecovia, we are starting 2 new villages. We already began with Ecovia San Mateo, that in a few months we sold more than 70% already to people from all over the world. And it's 280 lots, and it's going quite fast. And we have another one closer to the beach between Montezuma and Santa Teresa that we are doing. This is the master plan of Ecovia San Mateo. And part of this is the village center, where we have a full commercial area. We have a co-living space with apartments, and a school, high school area, and an art village. And as well, we have the whole, these are the 6 villages, and they have different names based on trees. And we have more than 160 hectares of reserve that is staying for everyone you come out of your backyard into this forest, and they are a set of trails, more than 25 kilometers of trails that you come out and you can walk, have shortcuts to go everywhere, but as well connecting into the reserve area. And as well, all the yellow area that you see here in the front of the river is a linear park. This linear park is an area, it's a flat area, and that everyone can enjoy the best areas. Instead of putting, the $1 million lots in front of the river, you have that everyone have access, and they can walk, run, bicycle. We have permaculture areas, very intensive food production. We have a sport course for like a soccer, basketball, tennis, etc. And there are lakes, recreational lakes, where you can have stand-up paddle, canoes, etc. So we are trying to have now we have these 6 villages, and it's really creating lot of opportunities in an area and in a rural area that didn't have much going on. Right now, many businesses are opening because Ecovia and Casa Azul are here, and the municipality made a study just with 45 families and the school. We are employing directly and indirectly 400 local families. So that's a lot of work for a rural area that usually they have to go and move into the cities because there are no job opportunities. And we look into regenerating as much land as we can that we can preserve, plant as many trees as we can, and really have thriving communities that they can coexist with in harmony with nature, with each other, and with ourselves. This personal growth thing is very important for us as well. So now we are in a quest of really, how can we have more of these villages in Costa Rica and everywhere in the world? And we have a lot of people joining and bringing their energy and ideas, and famous writers and sports people and people like that they feel called. They are joining and they are spreading the word, and they are getting more traction. And we are very excited with what's happening and how things are moving, and the interest that we have. This is a regeneration strategies, all the wildlife corridors existing, the roads, and this is the map with the roads and all the trails, walking trails, more than 25 kilometers. So yeah, I mean, I would love to share more if someone has more interest. Every Friday, I give a webinar where I go into more depth and answer Q&As. So welcome to join. You can find the link through our website, social media, or someone, but 1 week I do it in English, 1 week I do it in Spanish. So thank you for your time, and wonderful to be here with you guys.
Magical. Thank you, Marcelo. That was incredible. Real inspiration. I'll hand over to Morgan now. If we can try and keep it to 6-7 minutes, that'd be great.
Okay, well, let me share my screen. So can you see, hang on, it's loading. Can you see that now?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, so my name is Morgan. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the presentations that have been so far. It's kind of mind-blowing, the scale of what everyone is doing. What we're doing is, it's a little bit smaller. Amara Valley is a nature retreat and a healing sanctuary. So we're off-grid in northern Catalonia, near a place called Banyoles, which has the biggest lake, one of the biggest lakes in Spain, and we're on the side of a mountain that has been really well protected. It's all forested. And so we're holding retreats and different kinds of transformative events since we came here. We came here a few months before COVID started, so that's really marked our whole experience here. But now we're really running, and this is from our deep dive retreat, which is a kind of detox fasting retreat, and this is from one of our Agni festivals. So it's built around our main house, which is it's a renovated masía. On a 10-hectare section in a larger valley that has a number of different properties, which I'm going to talk about just at the end. So we have a large yogashala, a pool and sauna where we've set up an organic garden. We're running on solar power. We generate about 2/3 of our energy, and just kind of coming to grips with the scale of what that takes to do all these things. So we have accommodation for about 30 people, and so we have different tiers for different spaces, which is pretty flexible for different kind of groups. And then Amara is really focused on healing and wellness. We have a really wide range of things that we offer ourselves. My background is as a yoga teacher and retreat and festival organizer, and so we're holding all sorts of things from wellness to I teach a form of yoga which is synergy yoga, which is like a fusion of vinyasa yoga, internal martial arts, and physiotherapy. the Amara Kitchen is becoming kind of pretty well known for everyone who's coming through here for what we're doing in the food. This was from a cooking retreat that we did just earlier this year, and then we're holding a lot of different therapies and ceremonies. There's a cacao ceremony. My wife Carlotta works with cacao a lot, and holding kind of larger events. This year it'll be the 8th year of our Agni Festival. So we started building community events quite a time before Amara came about, and have also been really involved in the European Burning Man community for a long time, taking camps to the European Burn Nowhere, and so we really started with the community building, kind of like Nicole was saying. We started with the people first, well before Amara, when Amara was just a glimmer in our eye. And now that we have a space to hold these things together, we are in the process of just learning how to do this. And these last few years, they've been incredibly challenging. I wanted to offer, from what I had understood a little bit, like the idea of the session of having lessons learned. I was trying to think about, like, well, what could I offer that I think could be useful for people, knowing that Amara as a sort of retreat and a venue, it's a little bit different than the regenerative village projects with people with like buying private lots and just a very different scale. We have about 10 to 12 long-term community Amarians, we call ourselves, in the community here, and then anything from 5 to 8 volunteers coming month on month. So we have quite a well-established volunteer program for that. So we're usually like 15 to 20 people living here and hosting the retreats and working on the place and developing the land and the gardens and all of these things. So I wanted to offer a few thoughts of just things that came to mind on kind of two main topics, which were infrastructure, and then around more stuff about community and actually like the challenges of living together. So just for this, things that we came into this place, and it was an old mazia, and over the last about 40 years, there've been successive generations of communities who've been coming here and building it up with more or less funding and more or less experience, and some things have been done very well, but we've also had to deal with like literally installations that have been held together by sellotape and bits of string, and it's actually been really time-consuming and frustrating to deal with really old and especially the poorly done infrastructure. And so we've really found that sometimes, even though there might be extra work to just completely break down and remake something, that often that's actually been a better way of going about stuff with legacy infrastructure. And to build with future maintenance in mind, it's been really frustrating sometimes when it's been clear people have done things and it might have worked at the time, but it's just a nightmare to kind of get in and access and maintain. And if we do this thinking of the future, that we make things really accessible, that there's diagrams for everything, we label everything, you make things really obvious for people, because you don't know, like, just to think of like 5 or 10 years in the future, or maybe you know how to deal with something, but there's going to be so many people coming through these projects over time, and to start thinking more on that scale. For me, it's been really important to learn the basics of everything from electrics to construction to landscaping, a lot of the technical skills, which I don't have a background in, but I've learned a lot about also through our festival production. But like, just having a little knowledge, I've realized being here, it goes a long way, and there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, a lot of common problems that just crop up. And I think it's really important that like everyone, we all learn to upskill ourselves to wire a plug and fix a toilet and just all of these things that mean that you're not reliant on other people, and especially also thinking in the longer term when supply chains potentially are going to break down a lot more, and we need to be able to make do with what's here, and technical expertise might not be there. And also that this thing of just when we've come in, not being afraid to question my own assumptions or others' assumptions about how things need to be done, or when especially talking about legacy infrastructure of like, oh, this was how they used to do it. But actually, material science is just mind-blowing how fast it's all developing, and I think that's only going to pick up as different AI tools go through things, and that we may be able to do things much more efficiently, much more simply, much more cleanly in future. Already shifting over in like with the electrification of different things. I think that that's already happening, but in water filtration and management, all of this kind of stuff. So in terms of community, okay, I want to, a few things. Community is really important for us. And actually, like in terms of Amara, a lot of the feedback that we get from people is that they have a a special depth of experience here with what we're creating, because it's like being invited into a family, and not a lot of like other it's easy for a venue to be nice, but for people to come here and feel held by the community here while they're going into deeper internal processes on retreat is just it's essential for really being able to go into depth on that. So being in community together, shared practices are really important. Shared celebrations, thinking about the rhythms of how we live together, what's marking our week, our month. We have we a while ago, about a year ago, we started doing something called Restore, where every month we have a day of silence and fasting, and then a sharing circle at the end of the day, just to kind of share from that space of going in and doing this collectively with each other has just been absolutely precious. It's really beautiful, and it's given this kind of rhythm of just marking things. Birthdays, also the solstices and equinoxes, and there's a kind of pagan sense of like, as soon as you're actually out on the land, it's just obvious the cycles that are there, and it's just paying attention to it, and then communing, and okay, what does this mean for us in this time? Having clarity about beginnings and especially endings, just recognizing, I come from New Zealand originally, and it's a very Anglo-Saxon culture. Different cultures maybe do things better or worse, but like a lot of us are coming from really death-phobic cultures that don't know how to end things well, or don't know how to recognize that an end is not a failure, for example. It's and I think this really ties into what Nicole was talking about just clear agreements with people. Has been really, we've learned some things the hard way. Also going through COVID and all of the uncertainty that surrounded that really made these things more difficult. And so we've learned over time which things to really be clear about, and to have these things, because we've also seen, like, as you're dealing with more and more people hear what they want to hear rather than necessarily what you think you have communicated really clearly. Creating low stakes ways of trying out new ideas and supporting people's creative exploration has been really important here. We have creative days where it's just like, hey guys, let's just stop and then just explore. Let's get materials and do things together and try things out, giving people a space to try out, for example, new workshops, hold sessions for each other to gain experience and confidence in these things in ways that then develops into what can become much more curated offerings, or professional kind of offerings from people internally. Yeah, managing expectations kind of ties into the beginnings and endings. Drugs, alcohol, and medicines. So it's become really clear that this is something that communities living together really need to have clear conversation about. It's very we have had the experiences of like having problems with people who had problems with different substances and alcohol, and seeing how much of a drain, like it just took so much time and energy from us. But all of us, we're kind of living in culture, like creating new cultures that are also very permissive. And maybe you go to a place and it's like everyone is kind of smoking pot, and it's like, hey, well, I mean, it's fine, we're growing it here, and just to be really aware of what the impact of these things are on our emotional sensitivity, our relationships with each other, our communications. And it's easy to kind of go off into all sorts of things, narcissistic trips, weird ideations, while at the same time seeing, like, actually this is a picture of a ceremony that we held last year with our community with mushrooms, that these experiences can also be hugely bonding. So learning to use these things in the right way and be clean and healthy with them really takes a lot of care and sensitivity, but they can also be a beautiful aspect of what's happening here. Burnout is real. Burnout is real. I really flamed out last year. As soon as COVID kind of started easing out and we started running, I just realized how exhausted I was just surviving the couple of years of the birth of our project. It was, and it took me a long time to get back to myself. So take days off, all of you. Seriously, I know that sometimes it feels really hard because there's a lot of responsibility. There's just an endless amount of work to do, but I put that there to tell myself more than anyone. Gossip is poison. Gossip is poison, and you need community agreements around not gossiping, what gossip is, why it's bad, and just like, how do you avoid doing this, because it's shit. Creating a sense of usness does everyone feel heard? Does everyone feel invited into collective visions? And being sensitive to like different people's different insecurities about coming into that and feeling heard and reasons why they might not be. Is especially, you know, different relational patterns kind of coming into it. Having spaces where you can share and name these things without charges is a real skill. We've found bringing so like external facilitators in to have like a couple of times a year we have workshops just for the community to just work through stuff and see where we're at and we're on the same page and this kind of thing. And yeah, making sure that you take time to relax and hang out together. Also, so in a place where you're all living and working together, it's really important to have relaxed time in the place where you're working together. So the place is not just about work, and then also to go out. So cool, a few ideas. We're in the process of buying the property across the valley, and we want to expand our way of doing this rather than one overarching project, is just being part of a node of this area. So we're learning how to do that and developing our Amara as a point of reference for retreats in Spain and build on our land. So thank you very much for the time. Thank you, Anton. We have a website, you know, Insta, connect with us. Just if you are in Spain or this area, then very happy to hear from you, or if you would like to come and visit. All right.
Amazing. Thank you, Morgan.
Okay.
Can't wait to visit. It's been on my list for a long time. Cool. And then Jess, over to you, and then I will finish with a few minutes. Go for it.
Mute, great. Sorry, I had fun. You were before me. Now I'm here. Great. And little timer. How much time do I have on done?
7 minutes. Go for it. And then I'll have 5, and then I'll wrap up.
No, well done. Okay, great. Stack. Share screen. Host disabled participant sharing screen.
Oh no. Have I not given you the power? Okay,
I
I'm
don't
going to do this.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Jess.
I got the power.
Boom. Where is Jess? Is it not alphabetical order?
I'll do a bit of a breathing.
There we go. Perfect. Make co-host. Go.
Cool. Okay, share. Great. Cool. Can you see it?
Yep.
Great. Awesome. Perfect. Well, it's always hard to do 7 minutes because it's the type of a live project, where obviously you could talk about it for years. Basically, the prompt that Anton gave me was what's new. So I'll try not to go too much in the kind of past 6 years building this project. Obviously, I'm not talking about the chateau itself, but you know, just more what's been going on in the past year. But a little summary for the people who don't know the project. It's called Chateau du Fait. The main mission has been really to beyond building this modern utopia, is to bridge between different things that normally don't really go together. So between a cosmopolitan world, from cities, people going from you know, big cities to really rural territories. The other one is, how do we reinvent the world of tomorrow and thinking about the future while being swimming in a place that is 400 years old? And also, how do we cross between different disciplines? So it's really trying to be against echo chambers, and obviously be a demonstration of a revitalization project at different scales. So obviously the idea is that you come to fair and you're revitalizing yourself. We're revitalizing the place, but also doing a lot of work around the territory. Little key elements. So the place dates from the 17th century. Maybe important to mention also that I was trained as an architect. I think it's a normal path for renegade architects to start doing these type of projects. It was a cooking school in the 80s. The chateau was for sale for 10 years. We purchased it in 2017. So basically crowdfunded 100K within my family to get a mortgage. And I've been paying it back since, and I'm the solo person taking a bit of leadership on this project, but I'm surrounded by a lot of amazing, wonderful people, but there is a bit of a benevolent dictatorship here, and it was never open to the public, and it's located in Lyon, which is the entrance of Burgundy, which is a pretty poor area of France. So it's a rural zone of revitalization. That's a bit of a legal term to say that it's a place that needs a lot of help. And so basically, I'm going to go really fast. I'm sorry, because there's a lot of things to talk about. In the past years, we've been basically developing a resilient ecosystem where all the projects are trying to feed each other. So basically what's new? So Fetopia is the Coliving project, so the commune, the creative commune that happens in the winter. So it's 4 to 5 months every winter. And we have about 150 people that come through Fay. Some people come, I mean, we have like a core team that stays for like the whole time, like 4 to 5 months. And then we have people who come for a week or months, and then we have people who come for a few days, but that's rare. We're trying not really to do that. What is cool is that it's like 90% of returning people. It's really a super tight community. So I really share some of the things that have been talked about. And so I'm not going to go really in details because I agree with like rituals and also really, so when it comes to the community, it's very collective in terms of decision making and things like that. But I've taken the stance in a place like a heritage space that is so beautiful and so big that if it was just really people living year long, it's almost too beautiful of a space to be used for that. And so it becomes a bit like putrid water that where there is no change. So we've really taken the stance of doing this kind of temporary commune. The idea is to have a bit this balance between caring for yourself, so you know, yoga and deep psychological introspection, but if you only do that, then you become a bit of a egotistical cunt. So the idea is also to care for others and so care for the cool you know, plants and animals around you, but also exactly in terms like when there's been death and things like that happening, that's when we've really also felt you know, the work that we've put into community and the support and how it's been giving back, and also obviously care for the world. And so instead of just being focused inward, focus outward. I'm seeing the time, it's like really impossible. Basically, in the past years, we've been doing a lot of projects trying to not only be a place of reproduction, if we're talking in terms of architecture terms, so not only a home, but also a place of production. We started a thing called the Fay Institute of Research. We've been having tons of conferences and workshops around planetary health, the Fay Computer Festival to reinvent a bit the machines of tomorrow, eco gatherings, blockchain. We've done also cool projects that, you know, starts like that, then they become this, so that's still at Fay, and then they become that. So that's quite cool, and it's like really empowering for the community to see a lot of projects that become really crazy. We have a yearly festival, so we just did the 3rd edition of our art festival, which brings together architecture, art, performance, music, gastronomy, really cool chef, really good food. I'm French after all. And then we have a second nonprofit, which is Friends of Chateau du Fay, which really built between all techniques of renovation, so built heritage and also natural heritage. So that has been the big project I've been working on for the past 4 years, which is renovating this dovecote, which has been like a real thing for the people that are close to me. It's 350K, believe it or not. This is insane. I've won basically all the prizes you can win in the heritage space in order to finance it. It's like nightmarish. And it started at 300K, obviously, but it's almost done, so that's super cool. And obviously I'm not sure I'm gonna make money back at it, but also working a lot on the land. I'm not showing the permaculture garden, but recently we've been doing this really cool project with landscape designer Eric Lenoir, who's amazing, and we've planted 2,000 different plants, regenerating biodiversity, and so it's the idea of doing things that are beautiful, but also regenerating the land and not mowing. So in order to not mow, it's easier if we have things flourishing. And so it's taking, you know, also the idea of the French labyrinth and doing it differently to inspire all the chateau owners in the world, because there are so many, to do things a bit differently. And we have a new cool gardener that's super cool. Also working a lot in the local area. So started this nonprofit that gathered all the local actors that are working towards a sustainable transition. And it's super cool. We also have a bar in the local town, people doing pottery, ceramists, people doing like free mesh network, a lot of like alternative people, and we managed to convince the mayor to give for free a huge building to a lot of eco-activists, and so now there is a second commune in the town with like 30 young eco-activists. So now Joigny, I've been saying for 6 years Joigny is the new Berlin, which was obviously a running joke, but now people are kind of hearing about Joigny, which is like really absurd. And then we started doing, I mean, this is the first thing we did, like with kids this year, but it's so cool. A lot of people came, 500 people. I don't know anything about kids, so that's great. I'm just learning it. 8 to 10 years old. It's a lot of people from underprivileged neighborhoods who don't speak French, a lot of people coming from immigration. So it's been super cool to also mix with the Fetopian community. And obviously to finance all of this behind, I have a bit of a business. So in the high season, I rent for festival, conferences, and weddings, and this is my own wedding on the top right. That was more a bit of a festival of love, but couldn't escape. I studied for 5 years alternative to the nuclear family, and I can't believe I got married. I'm not sure what's happening. I might start voting far right. And then also a lot of renovation. We started kind of redesigned the interiors, so now it's like a bit architecture digest style, and put 30 glamping tents, so now we can have 150 people on site, and still have a lot of projects to go. One is really around energetic efficiency, because the heritage people are like, no, you can't change the windows, and obviously that's something we should do. And around the land, and my big dream, and so like you see the chateau, and then there are all those like monoculture land around, and I want to do this amazing agroforestry project. So if anyone can help, that would be awesome. So I guess it's always good to say anyone who is an expert in for-profit, non-profit structuring, agroforestry, and solar panels, come to in heritage spaces, come to me. And the goal now is to obviously merge all of these projects a bit more and how we communicate about it. These are the dates to write, so you can visit me and we can meet in person, because it's always better in real. And thank you. Sorry, I'm like 2 minutes more.
Don't worry, that's great. Cool. Well, before you run away, I will share for 1 minute, if that's okay. Let me see, not the sports, but here. So actually, Chateau de Fay was the big inspiration for me as well. And 2 years ago, I had the sketch. You may have seen it, and it was an intention. That was all that it was. There was a potential site where I kind of based this idea from, but it kind of fell through. And what's really cool is that 2 years later, it's totally different, but we're living it. This is Selgas. So we have our own 8-acre estate. And when you enter, there's this beautiful Gandalf tree that's a willow the size of an oak. And yeah, and I'm here. This is our bed. And then our little office. And we built the giraffe called Cammy and renovated the barn. And the place is actually not too far from London, which was always a big criteria for me. And you can actually walk or cycle directly from the main line station. So I can get door to door from House of Transformation in 3 hours, just. And yeah, and not only do we have this kind of really beautiful, intimate space that can host 25, 30 people in the cottages in the mill house, but also we're adding our glamping. We've renovated the barn, and we've got this northern woodland that's a beautiful site for potential self-build co-housing. There was an old chalet built in the car park, so we've got precedent, and we can actually make it happen, which is amazing. And the model that we're taking is really kind of self-funding this first phase, when we just get the venue rolling, do this essential infrastructure, and then kind of make sure our cash flow is good so that we can slowly, in the right way, transition to a village where we're not so dependent on events, and we can have a permanent community living here, building their own homes, and transforming the land. Yeah, first thing we did, gather people for New Year's, clear out this complete mess of a dumping ground barn, and then da-da, here we go. Not bad for a couple of months. And then filled the place with paintings. This is one of the, I painted this when I was 15, and this one over Christmas. We kind of made the barn cozy. Thanks, Tom, for getting us to move the sofa. So many fun times already after just 3 months of co-living. Got lots of beds, put up the glamping, lots of paving rocks, electricity outside. We're going to have more here. I got the Starlink. I built this shower. Woohoo! Such a thrill to do that. Never done that before. Got the outdoor cooking set up. Learned how to use a lawnmower. Then hired a gardener because it's too complicated. A friend built these gates, and then I attached them to the veg garden. And so leveled up the infrastructure. We've got some funky wagons, put a proper bonfire together. And I even erected a phoenix out of waste willow, which is super fun, standing tall. And so, and yeah, and kind of, we're just at the beginning of this journey, just setting up the infrastructure, but really our community journey begins with Enchanted. It's going to be on the 6th and 9th. It's going to be our kind of Fey Arts Festival, where we bring people together in a kind of, we could say, Burning Man rebuild style, and explore what this place could be. Beyond just a venue, but also to share knowledge and ideas, just like we're doing here. And so the program is now really well put together with kind of over 40 contributors, and yeah, it's going to be a mix of movement, bedtime stories, being around a fire, amazing food, live music, and lots of co-created workshops around the themes we love. So so please sign up, join us, and then quickly lessons learned. You know, I think without going all into all of these, I think learning from others. You know, I got so much from Jess and listening to her talk, so much from Stephen Brooks 2 years ago, and I think you find your own way. But it's so valuable not to be isolated in a bubble, but to reach out, get a feel for what everyone else is doing, and then see how you then apply it to your own criteria, your own way, and your own truth. And so I was this kind of I'd pretty much given up the idea of doing this type of project until 10 years time. And then literally in the space of 3 months, here we are. And I moved out of London, which I never thought I'd do. And yeah, we're fully making this happen. So, you know, these, it's amazing how quickly everything can click into place, as long as you have the intention there. And that sketch actually came true, which is pretty cool. So, so yeah, I will wrap up because we're out of time, but it's wonderful to bring all of these different speakers together, some of my favorite people and projects around Europe and the world. And hopefully this gives you like a lot of juice to kind of build from, to get inspired to create your own village in your corner of the world. And thank you, Eric, Jess, Morgan, Nicole, Tom, and Marcelo for giving these lightning talks, inspiring me, and hopefully a few others as well. So thanks for joining. I had a lot of fun. See you guys on the other side.